Okay. So, my name is Guy Kawasaki. Thank you very much. It's like being stupid and arrogant. It's just a deadly combination. And so what I do is I use the top 10 format so that in case you think I suck, you know about how much longer I'll suck. Okay. So this is what I learned working at Apple. I was also a venture capitalist and an entrepreneur. I've been an advisor to many companies also. So this is a distillation of about 30 years of entrepreneurship and innovation and disruption. And I also want to publicly thank Bob because much of the work he and Xerox PARC did is what we stole to make Macintosh successful. So. Right, Bob? Just, let's just tell it like it is. Steve's dead. He won't ever know. So, speaking of, I obviously work for Steve Jobs, and I just want to tell you that that was an amazing experience. Everything you've read, heard, everything you've seen about Steve is true. He was a very difficult person to work for, but he was a remarkable person to work for. I would not be here were it not for Steve Jobs. And I think the world is a lot less interesting without Steve Jobs these days. Having said that, I can almost promise you that he is telling God what to do right now. And he's probably telling God how to make Universe 2.0, right, Bob? And I can tell you right now, if Steve Jobs is designing Universe 2.0, it's going to be late. It's going to be expensive, and none of your cables will work. So, let me talk to you about the art of innovation. So this is the Macintosh division. This is where I really learned about innovation. I'm in the upper left-hand corner. One of the big mistakes I made in my career is that I didn't stand in the front of this picture. Who could have known that Apple would become so successful? The most important person in this picture is, of course, Steve. He's kneeling down there in the front. This is a very important photo because this is the only known instance of Steve ever getting down on his knees for anybody. Back then, Apple had two divisions, the Apple II division and the Macintosh division. Apple II division was shipping, so it made all the money. Macintosh division was still trying to finish Macintosh, so it was spending all the money. And yet we were such bad people, we would not let Apple II division employees into this building. And they quickly figured out that they were paying for the building that they were not allowed into. So they got a great joke about us, which is how many Macintosh division employees does it take to screw in a light bulb? One, the Macintosh division employee expects the universe to revolve around him. How many of you use Windows machines in this audience? Come on, you can be proud. Open carry state. So the Microsoft version of this joke is how many Microsoft employees does it take to screw in a light bulb? And the answer is none because Bill Gates declared darkness the new standard. Okay, so the art of innovation. Number one that I learned, and I really learned this from Steve, and this may be contrary to all the advice you've been given by entrepreneurs and experts and all that, I don't think you can ask customers about how to truly innovate and disrupt. Because I think if you ask customers, they're going to tell you, give me better, faster, cheaper, of what you already give me. So if you're Apple and you ask an Apple II owner, what do you want from us? They would say better, faster, cheaper, Apple II. No one told us, give us an incompatible new operating system with no software, different chip, with no peripherals. Give us a Macintosh. Everybody wanted better, faster, cheaper Apple II. So if you truly want to innovate, I don't think you can ask customers. That begs the question, well, who do you ask then? And I think you ask yourself. It comes from your vision, your passion. You create the product or service that you want to use, and then you just hope that you're not the only person in the world like that. I think that describes what Steve and Woz did. They made the Apple I, the computer they wanted to use, and thank God they weren't the only people who wanted to use it. Don't ask customers. Number two is to jump to the next curve. This is about perspective. Great innovation, great disruption, great entrepreneurship occurs because you've got to the next curve better. And speaking of see-through, I love this concept of getting to the next curve and maps, and I'm going to show you two examples. The first example is ice. There was an ice harvesting business, early 1900s. Bubba and Junior would go out to a frozen lake or a frozen pond, cut blocks of ice. 30 years later, There's a nice factory curve. Now, it didn't have to be winter. It didn't have to be a cold city. You could have an ice factory in Dallas. You could not have ice harvesting in Dallas. Another 30 years go by, and finally we have the refrigerator curve. This is even better because now you have your own ice factory. You have a personal chiller, a PC, if you will. The interesting historical fact is that none of the ice harvesters became ice factories, and none of the ice factories became refrigerator companies. Because most companies define themselves in terms of what they already do, as opposed to the benefit they provide. You've got to get to the next curve. Think of maps, paper map. You saw an example. You saw a paper map here in the first company, right? So that was map 1.0, better than papyrus, but still paper. Map 2.0 is now this digital map on our phones, much better. But really, the action gets very interesting with Waze, and this is map 3.0. So if you dissect this map, this is a map of the Bay Area. I live in the upper left-hand corner. I'm trying to get to the lower right corner. I'm trying to go from Menlo Park and Palo Alto to Santa Cruz. The typical path is 85 to 17. Waze is telling me that there's a lot of traffic on 17 because other Waze users are stuck there. So don't go 85 to 17. Go 85 to Winchester to Los Gatos, and there get on 17. This is why I asked See-Through about, can you give me a product that shows me where the long lines are? Because other people using the same app are stuck in that line. That's what I want to avoid. Map 1.0, Map 2.0, Map 3.0, ice harvesting, ice factory, refrigerator. Get to the next curve. This is the slide that should scare the shit out of all of you. This is a slide that says, we define our business as the chemical business. We put chemicals on film. We put chemicals on paper. Ergo, we do not embrace digital photography. Kodak arguably invented digital photography, but if you define yourself as being in the chemicals business, you don't embrace the digital photography business. What those two companies at the top should have done is define their business as, we are in the business of preserving memories. We can preserve memories with chemicals on film, chemicals on paper, or sensors. It should not matter if you're preserving memories, whether you're using chemicals on paper, chemicals on film, or digital sensors. Just as if you're an ice harvester, ice factory, or refrigerator company, if you define yourself as we're in the cleanliness and convenience business, it should not matter if we're harvesting ice, freezing ice centrally in a factory, or building refrigerators. Get to the next curve. The bottom, if you define yourself as a dedicated word processor, you don't embrace computers. Certainly, if you define yourself as we're a typewriter company, you don't embrace the computer business. This is the curve. This is the scary. This is the death slide. You never, ever want to be on this slide. Get to the next curve. Number three, you probably all have heard of the MVP concept of Eric Ries, the minimum viable product. I would like you to add two more V's, okay? So the two V's I want you to add is valuable and validating. Valuable means what you're doing is important. It is denting the universe. Validating means that you're testing an assumption, you're testing your vision, you're testing how you think the world will evolve. So you could do something that's viable. For example, Apple could make or sell a laser printer. It could buy laser printer engines from Canon, put the Apple logo on it, and sell it in the Apple store. Is that viable? Yes, people would buy it. Is it valuable? No. It doesn't make the world a better place to have an Apple labeled laser printer. And what does it validate? Does it validate anything about how the world will evolve? Not at all. So I'm asking you, as entrepreneurs, to up your game. Don't just make a minimum viable product. Make a product that is minimum, viable, validating, and valuable, an MVP. Number four is to make design count. I think lots of people, when they create apps, when they create services and sites, they're all about functionality, and they're not enough about design. This is a picture of Burl Smith. He was a programmer and hardware engineer, created the Macintosh analog board, a musician also. One of the key differences between Apple and most other tech companies is that Apple, the engineer is considered an artist. Steve Jobs considered engineers artists, not people who spit out lines of code. So design counts. Apple is proof that design counts. Number five. Number five is don't be afraid of polarizing people. If you truly are disruptive and innovative, you will polarize people. This is a TiVo, time shifts, programs. People like me who travel a lot, we love our TiVos and our X1 Infinity boxes. There are people who hate TiVos and DVRs. People who work for large brands and ad agencies who spend millions of dollars creating commercials, and people like me never watch commercials except for one day a year. And that, of course, is Super Bowl Sunday. And if you're a 49er fan, that's the day you watch the commercials, not the game. Don't be afraid of polarizing people. Think of the polarization that Lyft and Uber and Airbnb causes. Don't be afraid of polarizing people. Number six is to ignore the naysayers. Part of being an innovator and a disruptor is you have to learn to ignore people. People are going to tell you it can't be done, it shouldn't be done, it isn't necessary. There are two kinds of naysayers. I actually call them bozos in the world. One bozo is slovenly, disgusting, pocket protector, body odor, Japanese watch, rusty car. And you look at that person and you say, wow, you are a loser. Only losers listen to losers. So if you're not a loser, this is not a dangerous bozo. The dangerous bozo is a winner. The dangerous bozo is rich, famous, powerful. And I think many people are tempted to parse rich and famous to powerful to smart. That is not a good assumption. Rich and famous and powerful may parse to lucky, not smart. So the dangerous bozo is the bozo that you think knows everything and can tell you better because you'll be tempted to listen to that bozo. I think that bozosity is like the flu. And how do we fight the flu? We get a little bit of flu so that when we actually experience big flu, we've already built up resistance. I'm going to give you some bozosity, an inoculation of bozosity. I think there's a world market for maybe 5 computers. Thomas Watson, chairman of IBM, allegedly said this. 5 computers. I have 5 Macintoshes in my house. Oops. This telephone has too many shortcomings to be seriously considered as a means of communication. The device is inherently of no value to us. Western Union, internal memo, 1876. In 1876, Western Union wrote off telephony. Oops. Today, Western Union could be Bitcoin, it could be PayPal, it could be Square, it could be any of these things, but not if you write off telephony. Hard to go from telegraph to internet if you write off telephone in the middle. In Jeffrey Moore's terminology, it's just too big a chasm to cross. There is no reason why anyone would want a computer in their home. Ken Olsen, fantastic entrepreneur, fantastic innovator, so successful on the mini computer curve, he could not embrace the personal computer curve. It's as if you went to someone who's extremely successful with ice factories and showed them a refrigerator. And they would say to you, there is no reason why anyone would want a refrigerator in their home. If people want ice, they can use a telegraph to send us a telegram that will deliver ice from the ice factory. Don't let the bozos grind you down. I wish I could tell you that whenever a bozo tells you you'll fail, it means you'll succeed. It's not that simple either. But if you listen to a bozo and never try, you will never know. And that is the worst outcome of all. Don't let the bozos grind you down. Number 7 is to change your mind. Many people, especially entrepreneurs, I think, believe that changing your mind is a sign of weakness or stupidity. I would argue that. This is an example. When Apple introduced iPhone in 2007, basically Steve Jobs said this: our innovative approach using Web 2.0 based standards lets developers create amazing new applications while keeping the iPhone secure and reliable. Let me translate Steve for you. He's saying closed architecture. We're going to make the phone secure and reliable by keeping it closed. If you want to add functionality to the iPhone, Safari plugin. A year goes by. Now, Apple says Apple executives to showcase Mac OS X Leopard and OS X iPhone development platforms at the Worldwide Developers Conference 2008 keynote. Let me translate this for you. Apple is saying it's wide open now. Anybody can create an app. This is a 180-degree reversal in 1 year. This is the kind of thing you need to be able to do as an innovator and an entrepreneur. Do not be afraid to admit you're wrong. Do not hesitate to change your mind. The beauty of Steve Jobs, of course, is that when he first announced that the iPhone was closed, all the experts said, Steve, you are so right. Thank you for making our phone secure and reliable. When he opened it up a year later, all the same experts said, Steve, you are so right. It should be open. That's the genius of Steve Jobs. Number 8 is all the marketing you need to know. Very simple. Uniqueness and value. Now, before any of you get too successful and hire McKinsey, I will tell you that you want to be in the upper right-hand corner. In this upper right-hand corner, that's where margin is made, money's made, history's made. That's where you change the world. The bottom right corner is the corner where you do something valuable, but it is not unique. In that corner, you always have to compete on price. If all the dance learning apps do the same thing, it's valuable to learn dance, but if they're all the same, you have to compete on price. In the upper left-hand corner is a corner where you have created something that is truly unique. Only you do it, but it is of no value. In that corner, you are just plain stupid. In the bottom left corner, that's the corner where you have created something that is of no value. And stupid people like me have funded more stupid companies who do the same stupid thing. I like to call that the dot-com corner. In the dot-com corner, we have a great example, pets.com. So let me give you the pitch for pets.com. This will explain why it wasn't unique. There are 300 million Americans. 1 in 4 owns a dog. 75 million dogs. Each dog eats 2 cans of dog food per day. 150 million cans of dog food per day. Total addressable market. And dogs eat every day. We are not in a dull and boring B2B business. This is a B2C business. Dogs eat every day. Actually, it's a B2D business. But anyway, dogs eat every day. And with my rock star co-founder programmer that I met one night when we were both drunk, how hard could it be to achieve 1% market share? 1% of 150 million cans of dog food per day is 1.5 million cans of dog food per day times 365. It's 500 or 600 million cans of dog food per day, conservatively speaking, worst case. Oh, Pets.com, mypets.com, epets.com, ipets.com, lastminutepets.com. Why was Pets.com not valuable? It wasn't valuable because it really didn't add that much price savings. And it didn't really make things more convenient. Because the dog food business is simple. It's supply chain. You have a cow and you have a dog. You need to kill the cow, put it in a can, get it to the dog. That's it. That's it. It is a very simple business. So people look at this supply chain and say, well, why is there a retail store sucking off 20% of margin? Do people like to go to the dog food store? Do they want to drive to the dog food store? Do they want to go to the point of purchase and perform an intelligent decision? Do they taste the dead cow in the can? No. So let's take away the retail store. At the top line of the invoice, we can take off 20%. The problem is at the bottom line of the invoice, you have to add in shipping and handling. You have to add in shipping and handling because the dead cow in the can is still in the warehouse. And then it was not convenient because if you added the shipping and handling and did this, then somebody had to be at home and UPS dropped off the dead cow in the can. Otherwise, you get the little tag that said, we tried to drop off a dead cow in a can today. No one was home. We're going to come back tomorrow and try to drop off the dead cow in the can. If you're not home then, we're going to send the dead cow in the can back to the factory. Not valuable, not unique. All of marketing boils down to being in the upper right-hand corner. This is one analog example. This is a brightening emergency watch. If you pull the big knob at the 5 o'clock position, it puts out an antenna that broadcasts an emergency signal. This emergency signal is caught by airplanes. They call the Coast Guard. Next thing you know, Kevin Costner is in a Coast Guard helicopter being lowered in the basket to rescue you. This watch can save your life. This is a smart car from Mercedes. All of us have cars that can park parallel to the curb. How many in here have a car that can park perpendicular? Unique and valuable. So if you're an engineer, You have to create a product that is unique and valuable. If you're a marketeer, you have to convince the world that your product is unique and valuable. Number nine. Number nine is let 100 flowers blossom. This is stolen from Chairman Mao, although I fail to see how he ever implemented this. Letting 100 flowers blossom means that at the start of innovation, the start of your company, take your best shot at positioning and branding. Who's going to be your intended customer? How are they going to use it? And then you ship your MVVVP and reality hits. And if you're fortunate, you'll find that people who are not your intended customers are buying your product. They may even be using it in unintended ways. Lots of people freak out when this happens. My God, the wrong people are buying our products in large quantities. We need to have an off-site. We need to figure out why the wrong people are buying this. Let me tell you something. If this ever happens to you, let me give you a piece of advice. Take the money. Always take the money. You know, with Apple, we thought we had a spreadsheet database and word processing machine in the mid-'80s. If you're old enough to remember back then, we were 0 for 3. Nobody bought a Macintosh for spreadsheet database or word processing. People bought Macintosh for desktop publishing. Desktop publishing was a gift from God to Apple. It saved Apple. I believe in God, and one of the reasons why I believe in God is there is no other explanation for Apple's continued survival than the existence of God. We thought we had a spreadsheet database and word processing machine. Come to find out we had a desktop publishing machine. Hallelujah. From that day forth, we designed Macintosh desktop publishing. We wanted to democratize desktop publishing, enabling people to create newsletters and magazines and books like we never could before. Take the money. In Silicon Valley, the way it works, we throw a lot of things against the wall. Some of it sticks. We go up to the wall, we paint the bullseye around it, and we say, we hit the bullseye. That's how it works. You can always hit the bullseye if you paint it after the fact. Number 10. The Black Panthers had a great political saying, burn baby burn. But what revolutionaries, and disruptors, and innovators, and entrepreneurs do is they churn baby churn. That is, they take version 1, make it 101, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. If you're Apple, you do iOS 11, 11.1, 11.2. You always have to churn. And this is one of the hardest steps because, as I said before, to be an innovator, you need to be able to ignore bozos. You need to ignore people who are telling you can't do it, can't be done, it shouldn't be done. So you need to ignore those people, and you create your MVVVP, and you ship it, and you let 100 flowers blossom. But then, you need to listen to the people who are actually buying into your dream as they tell you how to fix it. So it takes denial of reality to ship a revolution, to get to the next curve, but then it takes the ability to listen to people how to evolve your curve. And that is one of the hardest bits to flip. But these are the 10 key starts of the art of innovation, the art of disruption, the art of entrepreneurship. The most important 2 lessons I can give you is don't duke it out on the curve you're on. Get to the next curve. And the second most important lesson is don't let the naysayers grind you down. Again, I wish I could tell you when people tell you you can't succeed, you won't succeed, it isn't necessary, it means you'll succeed. It's not true. It's not that easy. But if you listen to those people and never try, you will never know. And that is the worst outcome of all. Steve Jobs had a great saying. You know, in tech and in entrepreneurship and innovation, a lot of people have this skeptical attitude that if I see it, I'll believe it. If you show me a Macintosh with millions of installed bases and thousands of apps, I'll then believe a Macintosh. But the way it works in the business that we are all in is the opposite. If you believe it, you will see it. If you believe in Macintosh to create hardware, you'll see it. If you believe in iOS to create iPhone apps, you'll see it. If you believe in Android, you'll see it. If you believe that people will rent their houses to total strangers on the internet, you'll see it. If you believe that people will pick up strangers in their own personal cars, then you'll see it. The way it works in technology is you have to believe it to see it. And
That's the art of innovation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.